Clara understood her confrontation had ramifications that would ripple through her professional life, but there was also liberation in standing up. It was not just about protecting Jack, it was about her own reclaiming of identity. The emotions surged within her as she later left the gathering. She felt empowered, yet vulnerable, an unfamiliar rush that illuminated her path. If this was how she would confront the world, head-on and without apology, then she had to prepare for the inevitable backlash. But Clara also felt another dynamic shift. A stirring determination blossomed within. She found herself racing through the halls, heart pounding not just for Jack, but for her own emerging strength. She would continue to carve her space, but she could already sense the whispers of dissent echoing behind her. The confrontation had merely stirred the pot, and Clara understood that the real test awaited. Would she unearth her voice and solidify her standing, or would the community's perceptions drown out her newfound confidence? That night, while contemplating her next steps, a text message from Jack lit up her phone. Just a simple, "Can we talk?" It ignited both wonder and dread. Clara felt the undeniable gravity of the moment. This interaction could lead to choices that would define not only her relationship with Jack, but everything she believed about herself. Would this be the night she would solidify her decision or dive deeper into uncertainty? Clara took a breath, acutely aware. Her next action could change everything. Clara took a moment to collect herself before responding to Jack's message. Her fingers hovered over the screen, uncertainty churning inside her stomach. Would he want to discuss their entangled lives, the boy who awakened feelings long buried? Or would it be about the storm brewing amongst their colleagues? As she typed back an affirmative, her heart raced, a mix of excitement and fear giving way to resolve. The next morning, Clara arrived at school early, determined to face the day armed with clarity. The hallways echoed with the sounds of her students, their youthful exuberance contrasting sharply with the weight of the previous day's confrontation. She breathed in the vibrant energy of her classroom, the familiar smell of crayons and paper reminding her of what was at stake. Today would be about more than teaching. It would require her to confront herself and the changes she had begun to embrace. During her free period, she found a quiet corner outside, the morning sun warm against her skin. Sitting on a bench, Clara closed her eyes and replayed her thoughts about her conversation with Jack. What if he challenged her views? What if he revealed something that forced her to reevaluate everything, not just their relationship, but her very identity? She felt on the brink of some significant realization, yet the looming uncertainty twisted her stomach. The moment she saw Jack approach, her heart quickened again. She clenched her teeth, ready to definier her next move. Would she rise to the challenge or falter under pressure, further entwining her destiny with Jack's? The impending confrontation held the potential to reshape everything. Clara's heart raced as the teacher's words sliced through the air, their cruelty ricocheting off the walls of her mind. She tightened her grip on Jack's hand, a firm anchor in the midst of chaos. This moment, so vulnerable yet awakening, held the power to either shatter her or solidify her resolve. Not hiding. Clara found her voice, steady and defiant. Just having a conversation. The fellow teacher's smirk deepened, and Clara recognized the challenge in her eyes. It was a test, one that would demand she confront not just the judgment seated before her, but the whispers spiraling through the faculty lounge. Every ounce of her instinct urged her to retreat into the safer, quieter banter often shared with peers. But something deeper stirred inside her. "Does the conversation bother you?" she asked, a hint of boldness slicing through her hesitation. "Or does it challenge the narrative you uphold?" The teacher blinked in surprise, momentarily caught off guard by Clara's unexpected assertiveness. Jack's grip on her hand tightened slightly, as if drawing strength from her reaction. Clara caught the fleeting expression of respect on Jack's face. That brief moment ignited something within her, a sense of ownership over her choices and her space. Feeling the heat rise in her cheeks, she redirected her attention to Jack. "We can define who we are, what we allow others to see," she continued, turning back to the teacher with renewed determination in her gaze. "If anyone has a problem with that, perhaps they need to reflect on their own truths instead of critiquing ours." The teacher blinked in surprise, momentarily caught off guard by Clara's unexpected assertiveness. Jack's grip on her hand tightened slightly, as if drawing strength from her reaction. Clara caught the fleeting expression of respect on Jack's face. That brief moment ignited something within her, a sense of ownership over her choices and her space. Feeling the heat rise in her cheeks, she redirected her attention to Jack. "We can define who we are, what we allow others to see," she continued, turning back to the teacher with renewed determination in her gaze. "If anyone has a problem with that, perhaps they need to reflect on their own truths instead of critiquing ours." The teacher blinked in surprise, momentarily caught off guard by Clara's unexpected assertiveness. Jack's grip on her hand tightened slightly, as if drawing strength from her reaction. Clara caught the fleeting expression of respect on Jack's face. That brief moment ignited something within her, a sense of ownership over her choices and her space. Feeling the heat rise in her cheeks, she redirected her attention to Jack. "We can define who we are, what we allow others to see," she continued, turning back to the teacher with renewed determination in her gaze. "If anyone has a problem with that, perhaps they need to reflect on their own truths instead of critiquing ours." The teacher scoffed, but Clara saw a flicker of uncertainty behind her facade. As the other teacher walked away, the pressure released from Clara's chest, replaced by a sense of victory. She had stood her ground, and the feeling was foreign but exhilarating. "You did great," Jack said, admiration shining in his eyes. "I wish I could be as brave." Clara felt a rush of warmth, not just at the compliment, but at the knowledge that each small act of defiance was a step towards the person she wanted to be. "You will be," assured her, recognizing that their journeys mirrored each other in myriad ways. "Bravery comes in different forms. We just have to choose when and how we wield it." Their hands, still linked, felt like a declaration of solidarity against the critics who lurk like shadows. Clara looked around the bustling school, where laughter and chatter of students filled the air, a reminder of what she fought for. Yet, as the day unfolded, Clara noted that brave moments had a price. Whispers followed her. Colleagues exchanged knowing looks as she passed by, and the weight of scrutiny pressed down harder than before. Despite her earlier victory, Clara felt the effects of vulnerability. The exposure left her questioning how she could maintain her footing. During her next class, as she stood amidst her students, she felt invigorated, yet painfully aware of the fine line she walked. Her lessons transformed as she encouraged conversations about bravery and authenticity. But behind the enthusiasm, insecurities lingered. What if she faltered? What if Jack, too, couldn't handle the fallout? That evening, sitting alone in her living room, she turned over the realization that she could either bow under pressure or rise with determination. The crux of it was hers alone. Clarity dawned on her. She had the power to own her narrative, to control how much she allowed outside opinions to matter. With a pen in hand, she began jotting down her goals. To speak up, to advocate, not just for herself, but for others like Jack. To forge a new path, irrespective of others' judgment. Each word burst forth, revealing aspirations that felt incendiary, yet liberating. She would embrace this challenge, no matter the consequences. As she crowned her evening with a resolute breath, she recalled her conversation with Jack. It ignited a fire in her that demanded to be shared and felt. But would he embrace their path? In that moment, a new resolve took shape. She would call Jack to discuss their next step together. The growing desire surged within her. They stood on a precipice that could redefine everything. What lay ahead was uncertain, but Clara felt a pulse of anticipation in her veins. It was time for their next chapter, and with it came the weight of uncharted territory, igniting her curiosity about what challenges they would face together. Would they find the courage to confront the storms looming on the horizon? Or would the shadows deepen, threatening to snuff out their fledgling light? Clara sat on the edge of her bed, her phone cradled in her palm as she stared at the screen, contemplating her next move. The late evening light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow on the walls, yet her mind was lit up with doubts. Jack's voice rang in her ears, the admiration, the yearning for bravery. It made her heart swell and tremble at once. But would he truly align with her vision? Taking a deep breath, she dialed his number. The line rang, and her heart thudded in her chest. Would he be willing to join her in this fight against the status quo? The moment felt weighty, teetering on the edge of potential change. "Hello?" Jack's voice broke through her thoughts, and a rush of relief washed over her. "Hey, it's Clara. I was wondering if we could talk about everything that happened today." "Of course, I've been thinking about it too," he replied eagerly, and it surprised her how quickly the connection felt established again. They agreed to meet at a nearby cafe, bringing childhood nostalgia mixed with the pulse of their own emerging adulthood. Together they shared a laugh, uniting over their aspirations and fears. Yet Clara couldn't shake the sense of looming conflict. Every courageous act has its repercussions, and the question lingered. Would the resolve they were forging withstand the scrutiny and opposition rising on the horizon? As she drove home later that night, Clara's mind raced with the possibilities ahead, a part of her craving the confrontation. With a silent promise echoing within, she realized they were not just deciding to lead, but to confront whatever came their way. Yet with every stride forward, Clara felt the whispers of doubt crawling back. Would she and Jack truly have the heart and conviction to face the backlash? No matter the outcome, the revelation of their intentions gleamed like a guiding star against the night's uncertainty. As she parked her car, Clara looked out at the darkening sky, tangled emotions sparking to life. Tomorrow would be the first step, but what awaited them in the shadows? The next day dawned with the kind of energy that sat heavily on Clara's shoulders. She left her house, the crisp morning air filling her lungs with a mixture of dread and exhilaration. Each step toward school felt like a ride on a roller coaster, the ascent leading to an inevitable plummet that left her breathless. Today, she would set her intentions in motion, and there was no turning back. As she walked through the hallways, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that all eyes were on her. Voices buzzed around her, laughter echoing from the corners, yet inside she felt an eerie juxtaposition of her newfound purpose against the pressing weight of self-doubt. What if no one cared? What if they laughed? Jack was already waiting by their designated meeting spot, a small nook by a window overlooking the slowly bustling courtyard. There was a fire in his eyes, an eagerness that only fueled Clara's resolve. They spent the morning discussing logistics for their planned meeting, but beneath the practicalities lay an undercurrent of rising tension. Jack seemed just as aware of it. His excited chatter occasionally faltered, as if searching for the right words, the right tone to match the shift of their undertaking. "Are you ready for this?" he finally asked, the question wrapped in genuine concern. "More than I'll ever be, I think," Clara replied, forcing a smile that felt stretched. The truth was, she felt like a child playing grown-up, pretending to own a fortress of knowledge that she didn't truly grasp yet. As the lunch hour approached, the duo made their way to the cafeteria, a familiar chaos emanating from the throng of students. Clara's heart thundered as she considered the possibility of pitching their idea to a few friends. "Let's just get some feedback first," she suggested, swallowing hard. "Okay, but don't forget, the more we talk about it, the more it solidifies as a reality," Jack replied, visibly encouraging her despite his own uncertainties. Gathering her friends around a table, Clara's voice trembled as she shared their vision, a forum for open dialogue. The initial reactions were varied. Curiosity battled with skepticism. Her friend Mia looked thoughtful but unsure, while Ethan, always the joker, threw in a sarcastic remark about needing a certificate of awesomeness to even attend. Laughter rose, but Clara quickly refuted the jest. This isn't just about talk. This could be a space for growth and change. Slowly, the tides shifted. As she shared her determination and passion, Clara caught glimpses of her friends leaning in, their faces becoming serious. It was refreshing to see interest spark, but with it rose another wave of anxiety. Would her classmates actually join? "What if people throw negative comments at us?" Mia asked cautiously, eyebrows knitted together in concern. As they discussed the backlash they may face, Clara felt a deep crackle of fear mixed with intrigue. "Then we answer it. We show them we're not afraid," she proclaimed, surprising even herself. The journey from doubt to confidence felt like a long-distance run, but it was one she was willing to take. As lunch drew to a close, the energy at the table shifted from apprehension to anticipation. Encouraged by Clara's passion, a few friends voiced their willingness to support, even actively participate. Clara could hardly believe what was unfolding. The pieces of something larger were falling into place. But lingering beneath the surface was the unrelenting worry of external judgment. When she caught a glimpse of Jessica, the ever-popular boss of their year, smirking from across the cafeteria, Clara's stomach twisted.
She's not going to let this go without a fight, she thought. The doubt crept back in, a potent reminder of the challenges they might face. Maybe we should reconsider, she thought aloud, pushing a stray hair behind her ear, her thoughts spiraling into chaos. Jack placed a reassuring hand on hers, grounding her. "Whatever comes, we face it together," he said softly, his certainty igniting something within her. The final bell rang, but the unresolved tension buzzed in her chest. Their enthusiasm was infectious, yet Clara couldn't ignore the hints of looming confrontation overshadowing their enthusiasm. She walked home in a daze, the adrenaline of possibility battling with the weight of her fears. There was a storm just under the horizon, and as they prepared to announce their plan, Clara couldn't help but wonder, would they be ready for the storm? She pulled out her phone and composed a text to Jack. "Are we really ready for this? What if we fail?" The message hovered on her screen, a tangible representation of her indecision. As she hit send, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that maybe the greatest challenge wouldn't be the reactions, but rather absorbing the reality of her own feelings towards it all.
Clara took a deep breath, finalmente allowing herself to accept that failure didn't signify defeat. It was a stepping stone to something greater. She pressed send on the announcement, watching the message flicker across the screen, an undeniable signal of vulnerability. Clara felt a rush as adrenaline surged through her veins. Whatever backlash might come, she would face it. She would discover the depths of her conviction. But as she stood poised at the edge of this new frontier, a sensation of foreboding tightened her throat anew. Jessica, still smirking from across the cafeteria, was clearly waiting for the perfect moment to capitalize on perceived weaknesses. Clara needed to brace herself for an oncoming challenge, both from Jessica and the possibilities her own voice might ignite. "What if we run into backlash?" she said aloud, pondering the thorny question. "Then we confront it head-on," Jack replied, his tone unwavering. "You're ready for this. We both are." Their conversation lingered in the air, turning Clara's uncertainty into a battlefield of conflicting emotions. The prospect of failure became just as intoxicating as the promise of success. Clara was beginning to see that the act of reclaiming her voice was her true power. As the final bell rang, Clara realized this battle would not only be against external forces, but also the tumult within. The winds of change were no longer stirring. They had become a tempest, one she needed to navigate with clarity, purpose, and strength. With her heart racing, she stepped into the throng of students, ready to announce their plan more broadly than ever before. But a swirling anxiety clouded her mind. The moment felt imminent, yet a nagging doubt loomed large. Was she truly prepared to face the fallout of authenticity? The taste of uncertainty lingered on her tongue like a bitter afterthought, urging her to acknowledge the risk of embracing her true self. Clara took a deep breath, knowing she was about to unearth the real battle ahead, a confrontation with not only her peers, but the perceptions she dreaded facing. Would they rise together, or would the shadows of ridicule pull her down? Clara stood at the entrance of the classroom, the air thick with anticipation and muffled conversations. The uncertainty that had been her companion for so long now vibrated with an urgency that pushed her from within. She felt the heat of Jessica's gaze, sharp and scrutinizing, but she was determined to not let it cloud her resolve. She was about to do something that could alter the very fabric of her experience at school, and that conviction stirred something deep inside her. As she gathered her breath, she took a moment to scan the vast room filled with familiar faces. An uncharacteristic confidence tugged at her. It wasn't just about the announcement anymore. It was about claiming her narrative amid external strangling expectations.
With her heart thrumming like a drum, she stepped forward, capturing the room's attention. "Hey, everyone!" Clara's voice quaked slightly, but was amplified by the sincerity behind it. "Jack and I have something important to share with you." Even amidst whispers and sideways glances, she directed her eyes toward Jack, who stood supportive yet anxiety-riddled beside her. She could almost feel his steadiness filtering into her, a subtle reminder that together they were embarking on something transformative, not just for themselves, but for anyone who felt like they were fading into the background. "We want to create a space where we can all express our thoughts and feelings openly," she continued, feeling as though she were throwing a lifeline out to her peers. A safe place beyond the usual cliques and judgments. As she spoke, she noticed certain students leaning in, their curiosity piqued, while others bore skeptical frowns. Jessica's scoff rang loud as she stood from her table, arms crossed defiantly. "And what, pray tell, makes you think we need that, Clara? Not everyone wants to air their dirty laundry in public." The impact of Jessica's ridicule was immediate and palpable. Clara's heart plummeted as the laughter of other students followed. That familiar tightness gripped her throat, reminding her of all the times she'd drawn back into her shell under external pressure. But with Jack's supportive stance behind her, she pressed onward, refusing to let the shadows seep back in. "Not everyone, Jessica, but some of us do. And sometimes it helps to listen to one another. We don't have to be alone in this," Clara replied, her voice steadier now, infused with a determination that had only recently begun to take root. Clara realized her response was not just about the project. It was about reclaiming her voice, a voice that had been hushed by fear for far too long. The more she spoke, the more she began to uncover the strength in her vulnerability. Jack's affirmative nod directed her gaze back to him. She found reassurance in his unwavering conviction. A moment of silence enveloped the room, as if even Jessica herself had momentarily lost her edge. Then a quiet murmur began. A hesitant excitement rippled through some of the listeners, breaking through the icy grip of doubt that had attempted to paralyze Clara. Suddenly, a hand raised in the back of the room, daring to ask, "When do we start?" That's the spirit. Clara's heart surged with warmth. Recognizing that perhaps part of her journey was learning to be bold enough to invite others in. But as the questioning resumed, so did Clara's inner conflict. What if this enthusiasm dissipated as suddenly as it had appeared? With every dialogue and insight shared, the reality of her project began solidifying, offshoots of doubt that had tangled within her mind. By the end of the class, an unexpected kinship emerged. Faces that once seemed indifferent now showed willingness to engage. Yet, as she basked in this small victory, a heaviness settled upon her heart.
Challenges would arise, and she sensed Jessica's sharp edges were far from dulled. What if they only feign interest, she mused silently. As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Clara left with her head high, but shadows still lurked in her mind. Walking alongside Jack, anticipation and anxiety swirled within her. The next endeavor would be to foster this embryonic connection. How would they sustain momentum? And how would she, Clara, navigate forthcoming turbulence? In that moment, she realized she had to prepare for the clash of vulnerability and resilience ahead. She could hear Jessica's laughter echoing through the hallways. The confrontation that loomed closer by the day might just be the biggest test of her newfound strength. The fight for authenticity had begun, but the battle was far from over. Would Clara manage to walk her path with courage amidst distractions, or would fear lead her back into the shadows she sought to leave behind? Clara Thompson stood at the coffee shop, a flurry of anticipation knotting her stomach. Just weeks prior, she could hardly muster the courage to voice her feelings regarding Jack. Yet here she was, transforming her doubts into proactive energy. The forum for open discussions about their experiences had officially launched, and now she awaited the crowd that would either validate or question their purpose. Days prior, she and Jack had strategized meticulously, outlining how they'd invite the school community to confront their misconceptions and explore their fears in a safe environment. Clara had grown from avoiding uncomfortable situations to embracing the potential chaos that their venture might introduce, and it thrilled her to no end. As students trickled in, Clara greeted them with a warm smile, reminding herself of everything she had overcome, the humiliation she felt from judgment, the barriers she'd shattered at her faculty meeting, and the resolve she felt when standing with Jack against their critics. Each student who entered bore a spark of hope, like kindling to her flame. But as more faces appeared, so did doubt. Clara spotted Jessica, flanked by her loyal followers, sauntering into the coffee shop. Clara's heart raced with trepidation. Would she turn this immensely positive gathering into ridicule? Calmly, she approached Jack, who stood resolutely by her side. "We've come too far to let one person define us," he said, his voice low but firm. Clara was grateful for his unwavering support, and as the meeting commenced, she focused on the faces captivated by her presentation. Together, they initiated conversations on difficult subjects, societal pressures, self-identity, and the courage it took to speak out. Clara felt invigorated as students began sharing their stories, a torrent of voice breaking the silence that had once shrouded them. The warmth in his words solidified her newfound self-confidence. On their walk back, within the friendly banter of post-meeting chatter, Clara reflected deeply on what had transpired. She felt substantial change encapsulating them. The raw honesty they had fostered offered a glimpse of what it meant to be truly seen, not just as a schoolmarm or a janitor, but as individuals boldly embracing their truths. Weaknesses were now intertwined with strengths. The contrasting stories of struggles and triumphs paved a path toward collective growth. As she stepped into new territory, Clara recognized the transformative power of embracing vulnerability. That night, she took a quiet moment to stand alone in her room, contemplating her journey.
She had faced fears, challenged norms, and conquered inner conflicts, all while discovering the essence of who she truly was. Clara had achieved confidence, allowing herself to redefine her narrative. With a heart brimming with hope, Clara made a promise to keep creating spaces for vulnerability, expanding the dialogue, and encouraging others to step into their own light. This experience had ignited a fire within her, and it was up to her to fan those flames. This was no longer merely about her and Jack. It was about building a bridge of understanding that could be sustained through dialogue. Clara had conquered a significant portion of her journey, but she understood the need for continuous growth. And so, as the sun dipped down, replacing the vibrant hues of day with the warm essence of dusk, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Clara stood grounded in her strength, ready for whatever lay ahead, embracing the journey she had transformed into a cherished narrative. Now is the moment for you to embark on your own journey. You need to subscribe now to this channel for exclusive stories of transformation that inspire and empower. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the fire of personal growth. Comment below your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Clara's journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who seek encouragement and understanding. Show your support for personal overcoming stories, because this is the time to uplift one another. Don't wait even one more second to be part of this growing community.